These two games look similar, but they really just don't really match up that well. Tecmo Bowl has better sound effects, and in my opinion, it's a better sort of play experience. It's more of an arcade football game, whereas Joe Montana 2, which I'm just going to call it that instead of its entire title, it's just not that great. If they stuck with the original format for the first Joe Montana football, that one would have worked a lot better, but I think Sega saw...
So let's start with the passing game on this.
Looking
for Joe Montana 2, the passing game is just absolutely awful.
No good.
I have no idea who the hell I'm throwing the ball to. I seriously doubt that they're ever going to catch it, and I don't know how to change receivers at all. All in all, it's just a really weird way of doing it, and I don't understand why they did it at all. It's just very, very weird. If they had kept it like the first game, which was basically a Madden clone, you would have had like the option of throwing the ball to A, B, or C receiver, and you would have had like a little window. Now with Tecmo Bowl, it's a lot easier. You can move your cursor around and select the receiver you want, and depending on like the defense that's been called, your receivers will generally be open. If they're wide open, they'll normally catch it, unless you throw the ball too far, then they're just absolutely screwed. And for one weird thing, I didn't really understand why they did this. Maybe it's because Joe Montana tries to go with a more realistic look, as opposed to just like arcade fun. But Joe Montana does this weird thing where if your players get into like a breakaway, so if there's nobody around, they catch the ball in open space, they're generally going to score a touchdown. At least with Tecmo Super Bowl, if there's even a chance of a defender near them, they're not going to be able to break, unless you do like some really fancy maneuvers and whatnot. Which you can pull off, it's not totally impossible, but it's just kind of a harder thing to do.
Active pass. Throws wide open down the side. Clock by the end at the 9. Touchdown.
Now the run games, these are a little bit closer. The running game for Joe Montana football is painfully annoying. But the run game for Tecmo Super Bowl is a lot like the passing game. You can easily get around your opponent. The defense is just absolutely insane with Joe Montana football, which makes it so much harder to actually do things. I found like the easiest way to do this is just with like a general sweep play. You get your player into space and you can kind of get around the line that way. It doesn't work all the time, unfortunately, but it works fairly well. Now in Tecmo Super Bowl, if you get into space with a running back, you're pretty much gone. You just need to do the weird little run back and forth up and down the sideline, and you can pretty much get away from anybody for the most part. As long as your running back has sufficient speed. Like if you play with Bo Jackson, he's just gone. Nobody's going to catch him. It's absolutely ridiculous. One thing I do want to say is the controls. I'm going to say this later, but the controls are terrible for Joe Montana football. I absolutely hate them. Maybe it's just the controller that I'm using, but I really doubt it would be better with a 6-button controller. It's just so very weird the way they did it, and I don't understand why. Pretty much that's it for this. I mean, the defense for Joe Montana is way ramped up. The defense for Tecmo Super Bowl, it still works, it's just there's ways to get around it. I don't hate either game. I just think that Tecmo Super Bowl is a more enjoyable experience. For Joe Montana, it's just, I don't know why they went with this side-scrolling thing. I'm probably going to mention it like 4 or 5 more times, but it's just not a good way of doing things. One cool thing with Joe Montana football is that they have a much larger playbook. You have a lot of different plays that you can choose from, whereas Tecmo Super Bowl, it's just 8. it's fine, but you only have 8 plays. Whereas Joe Montana, you have plenty of them to choose from. They don't all work, but they're at least there. It also kind of cuts down on the whole broken play thing, like where if you select your opponent's play or your opponent selects your play, the offensive line just implodes. Whereas Joe Montana, that doesn't really do that, which can work out pretty well. And it also doesn't have the same thing where Tecmo Super Bowl, where you can just exploit all of the damage, like all of the problems with the offensive line, where they just clearly don't see your player running against them. It's very weird when you really look into it.
One thing I didn't get into in the video is the controls for Joe Montana football are just atrocious. If they had stuck with more of like the Madden theme, where you always have that sort of back view of the offensive line, that would have worked out a lot better for this. But they tried to fit that engine into a side-scrolling game, and for me, it just totally fell apart. I absolutely hated the controls. Whereas the controls for Tecmo Super Bowl, they just feel absolutely wonderful when you're playing. So I want to say I like Tecmo Super Bowl way better than I do Joe Montana 2. And there's a little bit of a nostalgic reason I wanted to pick this. Tecmo Super Bowl was one of the 5 NES games that my family had when I was growing up. We got it for Christmas, and my brother and I played the hell out of it. I really do love that game, just so much more than anything else. I probably should have compared Joe Montana, this version of Joe Montana's football, to Tecmo Super Bowl 3, because they're similar in a lot of other ways. They have more detail for their sprites and everything like that. But I can always just compare Tecmo Super Bowl 3 to the third Joe Montana football game. I have no idea why they actually made 4 Joe Montana footballs, and I have absolutely no idea why, but whatever. Anyway, guys, the next game I'm going to look at is Herzog Zwei. I don't really have a game to compare it to, so the next episode is just going to be a single game. And if you guys have a recommendation for another game for me to look at, just let me know in the comments below. I will see you guys later.